and he's going to house it.
It's amazing. Absolutely amazing.
What's going on, everybody, and welcome to another Angle of Pursuit podcast, your fantasy football, sports betting, and NASCAR home. I'm your host, Kyle Robert. You follow me on Twitter at NotoriousKRO. With me to break down all that was the NASCAR All-Star Race and to look forward to the Coca-Cola 600 this weekend, figure out some of our early leans, early bets, and get some thoughts out there. It's Brian Twining. What's up, Brian?
Hey, Kyle. Yeah, the NASCAR All-Star Race was bonkers, kind of like we had anticipated. I actually feel as if there was a slightly more chaos than I had expected. I know there was a few instances where our buddy Ross Chastain was getting close to crashing out, and then ultimately he did, not even on his own part, like because of the fastest car on the track, Kyle Busch, getting a flat. And of course, the big issue of the tires and the tires blowing out bites NASCAR's in the ass again with the strongest driver in the field having this happen and then him crashing out of the race. So they're going to have to get that fixed.
Yeah, $1 million on the line. Course drivers were going to be going for it. Interesting week. Did you have fun watching the race? Like, I had a lot of fun with the All-Star Open, and maybe that's because we were cashing tickets as we were watching the race.
Well, and there was more on the line per stage. Like the All-Star race, they were racing for starting position for the final stage, and not just that. This particular track, Texas, it really highlighted how clean air has kind of. I know it's always been king in NASCAR, but really with this new next gen car, like the guy that's out front, they've been running away with everything. And it was shown right from the get-go when Kyle Busch led the first 47 laps, and he was well out ahead of everyone else.
I mean, we could throw up the betting card. It was shown from the get-go when Ricky Stenhouse got to the lead in the Open, and nobody was catching him.
Yeah.
So amazing week. We'll go through it all. We had some fun with the Open. We had some fun with the regular race. Your best bet was Mr. Chris Buescher to qualify. You not only liked it so much on the first pass, you came back with a better number somehow and crushed it. I found much better numbers on a different sports book and hammered Chris Buescher at plus 275. I had Ricky Stenhouse at plus 175. It was plus 125 by the time the race happened. And then Eric Jones, I don't know why I keep setting myself up for this, but he just, it wasn't it. His car just looked bad, and it was slow, and it was having issues keeping up. And
and then even the driver said like passing was almost impossible. So like if you didn't get out to the lead from the beginning of the stage, you were not getting anywhere up in the field.
And then poor Tyler Reddick, man, he looked like a great car. I thought he had it a couple times in the Open and didn't even get a chance to make the field. So, so I had futures on Buescher, Stenhouse, and Eric Jones on my sports book. For the show purposes, I just had Stenhouse and Jones. So I wish I had gone a little heavier on Stenhouse because I did feel really good about him, but at plus 100, I didn't love the number as much. Like I said, I got plus 175 offshore, and I was much, much happier with that. Justin Haley, I felt like was solid and actually was competitive. I don't know that I ever feel like he was going to win a stage, but he was flirting with that top 3 or 4 spots for a good chunk of stage 2 and stage 3.
Yeah, I almost feel like as cool as it was to see the winner of the stages make it to the next round, I don't know if it almost takes away from what NASCAR is really about, like the entire duration of a race and setting yourself up for the win. So I don't know. Like I felt bad for a guy like Haley who really came on strong late in runs, but obviously, like we said, like he couldn't get to the front and make the pass to potentially get into the All-Star race. So I don't know if they could extend the Open or do something a little bit different to make it a little more competitive. Maybe just go to a different track.
Yeah, well, and I kind of like F1 has their sprint races for qualifying. Maybe they could do a sprint race for I don't know, 20 laps and then set the grid based on that. And then have the actual race, maybe 50 laps. I don't know. But yeah, no, I mean, obviously from a betting perspective, it's really fun because you can throw darts and have a few shots to hit a few of these guys. And unfortunately, Eric Jones did make the race, but because it was a fan vote, they don't get to cash that ticket. But the ticket I did get to cash, I told Brian, I said, this is gonna be it, Brian. Why aren't you on board? Ryan Blaney season is officially upon us. Ryan Blaney grabs that $1 million check. He has looked great all year. We, for one reason or another, has had issues closing. Well, he didn't have issues. He actually had to win the race twice because if Ryan Blaney had lost the race because of the netting, I was gonna be like, it would have been bad. Like I would have just like, okay, that's it. I give up. Like that would have been the icing on the cake that said, Kyle, you need to take a break. Like that's it.
And what was super interesting about that whole like sequence of events was that the caution was thrown with him 4 car lengths from the finish line, with Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Driving straight and nobody even near him that could have crashed into him. There was no imminent danger whatsoever. So the fact that they threw the caution at that moment, to me, like it kind of ruined the entire race itself, regardless of what happened afterwards with the whole net thing and all that. Like that was almost like NASCAR saying, "Oh, we want more excitement with another restart or some crap."
Yep,
And
exactly. They wanted NASCAR overtime, get a little more excitement, to give it a real challenge. So, but I did get to cash that 12-1. It's very nice, very very nice.
I'm very
had
sad.
a very profitable week. It was awesome to see the guys that I went in on, Kyle Busch, Kyle Larson, and Ross Chastain just like out like early, like all three of them. Those were like
they
three
were
of
running
your
away from people.
bottom 4. It was interesting. But I did get Kyle Busch over Chase Elliott, even if by one spot, 23rd and 22nd. So I was able to cash that head to head as well. And we were talking about on the Saturday show is like the value I got at -110, -115, because on race day, I think they were -130, -125. So that was,
you had definitely lost some juice by the
that
time
was
the
some
race
nice momentum there. And then as you see, obviously Brian had his Chris Buescher, and then he had Hamlin over Truex. Hamlin looked good. I shouldn't have faded him as much as I did.
I should have had Bell over Logano too, if it wasn't for a freaking tire issue with Bell either, because he was out front for a little while and then he had tire issues as well. So NASCAR really has to get that fixed, because that's ruining the integrity of the races.
But we made a dent in our big holes here, and so we're climbing out little by little. So let's just build on it. Let's have another strong week. DraftKings was an absolute mess, but when you go in on Ross Chastain and Kyle Larson, and they run like a total of like 8 laps combined. So
it was the All-Star race, so I had no expectation.
Yes, very very low expectations. We weren't optimistic. Obviously, Tyler Reddick not making it had us pivot to Christopher Buescher, which actually ended up being the only driver that was actually really good for us. So that was a nice move on your part, and he's relatively underowned. But pretty heavily ownership here, but that's okay. We're on to the next one. Let's start there. As we head to Coca-Cola 600, another intermediate, another board that's going to have the names that we're used to seeing. Kyle Larson is your betting favorite, anywhere from 4.5 to 6 to 1. Kyle Busch 5.5 to 7. Chase Elliott's right there. A little Marty party kind of popping up. Denny Hamlin, William Byron. Of these like 6 names or so, is there names that are jumping out to you, or anyone you're considering actually betting this week?
I mean, if they're going to continue to give us like 5.5 on Kyle Larson and then 6.5 on Kyle Busch, who has probably been the best driver the last 2 or 3 races, including the All-Star race, regardless of where he finished there. So I mean, 6.5 is a good number for a favorite, when last year we were talking and Kyle Larson coming into this kind of race was probably 3 to 1 or 3.5 to 1, even before qualifying. And so Like I like Kyle squared or Kyle cubed with you on the show this week. So and then like Denny Hamlin and both William Byron, even those guys at 10-1, they've been great of late. And a win for Hamlin again, another win is probably coming soon.
Yeah. Yep. I like where your head's at. I am in agreement. I don't know if I'll be betting either outright, but I do love them both very much this week. And I will find ways, I think, kind of with the head-to-head market, or maybe some group placings or something to tackle them, because I think there is a lot of opportunity, as we talked about a little bit before the show. But another 1.5 mile track, a lot of similarities to Vegas, a lot of similarities to Kansas. Kyle Busch has finished third at Kansas, finished fourth at Vegas. 1.5 miles, it's flat. Gonna be a place where he performs really well. The one thing I will say is Chase Elliott, like historically, has done great here, and while he may not have, has been the dominant force that sometimes we're used to kind of expecting. His last 4 trips to Charlotte, 4th, 2nd, 1st, 2nd, starting from 2019 coming to 2021. So clearly comfortable on the track. Clearly has had positive results in 2022 on the 1.5 miles, and seems to be rounding into form despite a frustrating performance last week in Texas. Obviously Kansas wasn't great for him, but he did lead laps. He was looking good until he wasn't. Did solid at Vegas, is good on that 1.5 mile track. So I completely understand why his number is there, and don't blame anyone for going to that 7.5 to 1 if you can get it.
Yeah, I mean, going a little bit further down the board, like Blaney and Chastain are still very interesting at those numbers, 12 and 14 to 1 once again, with Blaney having been one of the fastest cars during all season, and it had been his pit crew, which surprisingly showed up during the All-Star race that had kind of faltered him early on the season. And then Ross Chastain, like you said, like during the All-Star race, he was one of the fastest cars up until trying to use Kyle Busch as a ramp to take off like Evel Knievel. So if you could, like, okay, I'm actually going to add this right now. Ross Chastain at 14 to 1, I feel is too good a value, knowing he's probably going to come into this weekend. He's probably going to qualify inside the top 10. Yep. I don't really care what he's done in the past here, which has been pretty bad finishing positions, but that's all last year. He's clearly a different driver, clearly on a different team that has put their best foot forward at Trackhouse. And I think Ross Chastain is really going to show out again this weekend.
Yeah, he's been a completely different driver. He has done really well on the 1.5 miles this year. He finished third at Vegas. He finished second at Atlanta. He finished 7th at Kansas. He's shown the ability on a variety of tracks to be a strong option, and a big part of why, obviously we got at a great number, but we think he has a very real shot at winning the championship this season. He's taken tremendous strides. He's figured out how to be a little more calm in his seat, and has really taken advantage. So if you can do me a favor and add that 14 to 1 on Chastain, I would like that on my card as well. As I just think it's a good number for a guy who's been driving exceptionally well. This is also a good spot for Blaney. I don't know if I'll get there. I'm going to watch that number move throughout the week. That 12 to 1 is tempting, and don't blame anyone for getting there. Obviously has been, really solid on the 1.5 miles all season long. Just needs to put it all together for all 3 stages, not have any issues in the pits. And obviously coming off a win, it's always hard for me to get back there. Tyler Reddick, 14 or 15, once again, a little higher than I think some people may be comfortable with, but for this range, he looked really good. And had he been in the race on Sunday, probably would have made a difference, but because he didn't qualify, doesn't get to be here. His time is coming. We talked about him a few times. And that 15 to 1, 14 to 1 number is a number that may end up on my card as well.
Yeah, I like Tyler Reddick. I would prefer to see him a little bit further back, kind of like with that Kurt Busch or Joey Logano at 18-1, just because he hasn't been able to get
Yep.
over the hump and win a race. And also, he hasn't been qualifying as good as, say, a Christopher Bell, for instance, who you can still get at 25-1, who has been routinely qualifying, inside the top couple of rows at almost every single weekend since the first couple of races. So like
Oh,
Bell 25-1 to me is a little bit better value at this point in the week. And I'm going to add that to the card again because it's almost guaranteed he's qualifying inside the top 10, and that number is going to shrink closer to that Tyler Reddick 14 or maybe even 13-1 come race day.
yeah. Yeah, and he's had solid runs, but not the great finishes. Finished 30th at Kansas, but actually started second, so he had a great qualifying and he led 24 laps. So he looked good from the jump. He just had an issue
Yep.
finishing the race. So had he finished the race, maybe he looks much better. Obviously had some issues at Atlanta too, but looked pretty solid at Vegas. Ended up finishing in the top 10. So I think he's something. Yeah, I think there's a like that whole, like, honestly, like Bowman, Reddick, and Blaney. I think I will add probably one of those guys, but I haven't decided which one. It might be just rather than outrights, look at head-to-heads or some other options for them. Let's keep moving down. As you mentioned, Christopher Bell at 25-1 is incredibly tempting. As we've talked about before, it's a number that we wish we could buy. Then he qualifies well and then sell the ticket and make
Yep.
our money week over week, because he will qualify strong at this course or at this track. But we'll see. My boy K Harves, man, it's been a rough road for him the past couple weeks, but has been dominant at intermediate tracks. Has had a nice run thus far, but was more of a top 10-ish guy at Vegas and Kansas at 12th and 15th. So it hasn't been quite as strong on those tracks as he has on other ones. So big part of why he's priced here. Daniel Suarez at 50 at Caesars. It's kind of interesting. We've talked about the improvements of Trackhouse as a whole. Obviously, Chastain's been a big part of that, but Suarez has looked good. He's been running near the front in a lot of these mile and a halves. And I think this could be a spot, maybe not an outright, maybe a top 3, a top 5 at a strong number. If the number is right, I could see myself diving in there.
That's getting a little frisky there, going with a top 5.
Maybe, we'll see what the number is, but I think he's been really good. Austin Cindric right behind him too is interesting. Once again, probably more of a placement 3-5 type bet. But Cindric looked good. He looked really good in the All-Star race. Obviously, has had his moments throughout the year. I could see him being another guy that's kind of in contention. Chase Briscoe at 60, man, that is tempting. Of the numbers that as I would kind of trickle down here, Brian, is there any numbers in this range that you're even considering? You're saying maybe there's something there?
I mean, with this being the longest race on the NASCAR schedule, it's really hard to get into this range of guys who, like, they're going to need a lot to go right and them not to, they're going to need to drive the perfect race. Like a Ricky Stenhouse, for instance. I mean, do we trust him to go 400 laps without spinning out? Like, probably not. I mean, even a Suarez, like, do we expect him to not run into some sort of problem or make contact with somebody for that duration of a race?
Brad Keselowski and Eric Jones will both be on the track, so probably not.
Yeah, exactly my point. So, like, this is definitely, I feel like, going to be a front runner's track where you're going to see like the typical guys running near the front.
Christopher Buescher, 125-1. That's a number.
That's a great number, but
how much different is Christopher Buescher from Austin Dillon, from Chase Briscoe, even Austin Cindric, even Daniel Suarez? Like,
yeah,
is he really half the driver these guys are?
No,
No, it's just
especially
he
too,
doesn't
like
get the
just looking.
numbers because he didn't win Daytona as a rookie or doesn't have quite the notoriety or isn't driving Earnhardt's number 3. So is priced. So that tells you these guys should probably be down here if you think Buescher is in a correct spot. But, Cole
Well,
Custer.
Chris Buescher has top 10 in the last 3 Coca-Cola 600s.
Yep. See, we'll get you there, Brian. I know you're feeling it. Let's look at what our boy Christopher Buescher has done this season in mile and a halfs. 27th at Kansas, not great. It's 18th at Vegas, not great. Okay, maybe there's a reason why he's priced there. Let's look at the top 10 market and see if we can't get some values. Maybe that's where we get to a Christopher Buescher, a Austin Cindric, a Daniel Suarez.
Yeah, so I already added Buescher top 10. We'll just go down the list and we'll reveal the number when we get there. But
yeah, Daniel Suarez, the top 10 at plus 100. I like that. Austin Cindric plus 150. Chase Briscoe at 175. Man, those are some numbers.
I feel like this week for the top 10 market, I'm comfortable as only for like the reputable sports books that we were talking about. We're not using like Sugar House or I don't even Bet Rivers or either of those two guys. Like I feel like Christopher Buescher is like the starting point minus 140. I feel like that's probably as expensive as I'd get. Because if he's going to qualify inside the top 10 again, he's probably going to be closer to like minus 2.5 to 1.
He's 3 to 1. Are these numbers?
Or sorry, not Chris Buescher, Christopher Bell.
Oh,
yeah. So starting at like Bell and then moving my way down from there.
Yeah. I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
Minus 200 is not something I can lay, but minus 140. As long as it's not with Eric Jones, you'll be okay. See, Daniel Suarez, I like him this week, and I think he can be good. But would I rather lay plus 150 with Cindric? I think I would. Would I rather lay plus 175 with Briscoe? I think I would. I definitely want Christopher Buescher.
Already added that. That's ridiculous. 3 to 1.
Yeah, that's a number. That's a good number, my friend. Let's go to the top 3 market and see if I want to get real feisty. Ross Chastain at 4 to 1 to top 3. What was his number? 12? 10, 12?
14.
14? I don't know if that's good enough. Bowman at 4 to 1. But I feel like Chastain is much more comfortable than Bowman or Reddick. Suarez at 11 to 1 top 3. That might be the ticket there, sir. Do we have any good matchups this week? Let me pull up our friends over at the DraftKings Sportsbook and see if we can't find.
There's actually a ton of them this week.
Awesome. Let's go here.
Oh, I already found one.
We didn't have a show bet last week, did we?
No.
Okay. We'll have to see if we can get back to the back on track this week. Find one. Obviously, I don't want to force it if it's not there, but jumping on board. Man, I wish these guys weren't facing head to head. Blaney at minus 110 versus Byron. That's fine. Christopher Bell minus 120 versus Harvick is interesting. Ryan Blaney 155 over Kurt Busch. Poor Kurt Busch. He didn't see it coming.
Chastain, that's a good number, dude, on Kurt Busch, who's been pretty good.
Yeah. Where did he win 2 weeks ago? Kansas?
Yeah.
He won Kansas?
Yeah.
Another mile and a half. Very similar track.
And he's been fantastic at Charlotte. He has the 7th best average finish. Or no. Let's see here.
Okay, I will take that. I will take that plus 135. Can you put that on the sheet for me if you have it up?
Yeah.
Cool. I think that number makes sense. I just in head-to-heads where cars have wheels fall off and Eric Jones spin out and knock people off the track and all kinds of random shit. I don't love seeing those numbers, but
It's always good when you can get plus money on a matchup.
Yeah.
Like, and then so that's one for me. That's why Ross Chastain at minus 105 over Martin Truex. I know Truex is one of, if not the most successful driver at Charlotte over the last 10 years or so, but Chastain has been so damn good this year.
I feel like their drivers going in the opposite directions too.
Yeah. And if you could get basically a top 3 driver on the season at close to even money in any matchup, you're probably going to do that.
Your boy Hambone minus 105 over Truex too. You could just fade the Marty party.
Man, I don't know if I could go that deep in there.
Stenhouse over Austin Dillon is compelling. You could also fade your boy Joey Logano with a Kurt Busch minus 110.
I will add that just for shits and giggles, considering I hate Joey Logano. Sake.
Yeah. You could do Chase Elliott and then just hope Truex parks his car on the side of the track and you can just cash all these bets.
Man.
Okay, let's see. I want to look at the F1 odds as want to see if there is decent numbers this week. Obviously, with F1 at Monaco, it's really hard to pass. So if you can get somebody who qualifies well, you want to do that. Charles Leclerc was the best driver last week and should have won the race had it not been for a power failure, yet Max Verstappen has won every race that he's finished. So at plus 120, I don't hate that. Mercedes is getting their shit together. And George Russell has been better than Lewis. Lewis was amazing. He had to drop back to 19th, complain like he needed to come off the track, ended up getting in the top 5. But George Russell has been Mr. Consistency when it comes to top 5. So I like him quite a bit if you want to get a little aggressive at the 20-1. Once again, though, it's really hard to pass. So I don't know that I can see him getting on that on that pole. Let's see what. Oh yeah, 2-1 to podium. I like that. Lewis to podium. I like both of these really. And then obviously Verstappen and Leclerc, but those numbers are untouchable. So, man, McLaren has been shit. So, top 6. This is where we want to go. Yeah, see these numbers crushed.
Yeah, those are terrible odds.
Yeah, well, it's like NASCAR of last year. It's very top heavy and even more predictable. So, if you want to throw a Leclerc or Verstappen double in with your bets this week, I think that's an interesting way to go. But definitely will be affected majorly by qualifying. I could see bet Verstappen now, and then these numbers will flip, and then you can bet Leclerc and give yourself a winner plus money. Brian, we talked some NASCAR. We obviously went through last week's nonsense and talked about our wins, talked about our losses. But I guess there's one thing left to do for this show, and that's to pick a winner. So what is your best bet for the Coca-Cola 600 this week in Charlotte?
So that's easy for me. The odds are still on the cusp of what I'm willing to pay up on, and that's going to be a Christopher Bell top 10 at minus 140 right now. I feel like they're starting to kind of realize that he is going to be a weekly top 10 runner, and so still getting this at less than minus 1.5 to 1. So it's still good value. So Christopher Bell top 10 minus 140. Couple of units on that is my best bet as we sit here right now.
I think that makes a lot of sense. Wow. Wow. Kurt Busch is 2-1 to top 5 over a DK. That is interesting. Christopher Bell is 3-1 to top 5. Because like, yeah, because like that 2-1 number is interesting, but when I can get plus 135 just to beat Ryan Blaney, it's hard for me to go all the way up to 2-1, and then he has to beat all these drivers, right? But I guess Ryan Blaney could get third, and he can get fourth, and then I'll be sitting pretty.
That would be brutal.
I'm gonna take Ross Chastain. I'm in on him this week. Plus 175 to top 5.
Oh, that's a good number.
Yeah, I like him quite a bit. Obviously, has been really strong on the 1.5 miles, and almost 2-1 to top 5. Yeah, I could find myself getting there for sure. So that is going to be my best bet for this show. Obviously, we will be back. In theory, on Saturday, I'm traveling this weekend, but Brian and I are going to do everything in our power to give you a show for you to watch on Sunday morning. Worst case scenario, we'll record some short videos and I will cobble them together and post them on YouTube with some of our favorite picks for both DFS and for betting. So make sure you come back. Let us know your favorite driver for the week, and let us know in the comments what you thought of the All-Star race. Do you want NASCAR to run that back the same way next year? Or do you want, like, what changes would you make if you don't want if you don't want NASCAR to do that? So that's Brian Twining. I'm Kyle Robert. You guys enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll see you on Sunday for more Coca-Cola 600, both bets and DraftKings. We'll talk to you next time.